Well, we are officially now in December and ready to go for a new episode here. Thanks, everybody, for being here alongside Penn's President of Hockey Ops and GM, Kyle Dubas. I'm Josh Getzoff. Kyle, appreciate your time as always.
Thank you for having me.
I know the goal for you as the GM of the Penguins is to win the Stanley Cup, but I'm wondering if maybe another award is coming your way in the form of an Emmy after just an incredible performance with you and Corey O'Connor, the mayor of Pittsburgh. Did you know about the doppelganger? How did this all come about?
Well, there'll be no awards, and it will be a first and last. I've heard since moving to Pittsburgh that you got to see this. There's this guy in politics that you look like. That looks a lot like you, or you look like him. People say I look like the new mayor of Pittsburgh.
And people say I look like the general manager of the Penguins.
For clarity, he's the short one.
And clearly, he's the tall one.
I'm not the one you call about your potholes or your taxes.
And I'm not the one you call about the power play or who's in net tonight.
But we're both proud to represent the black and gold. I'm Kyle.
I'm Corey.
Dubas.
O'Connor.
And we approve this message.
The double phones was an all-timer there from him on the desk. Well, let's dial it back to your actual job, running this team, not the imaginary mayor of Pittsburgh job. Game in Philadelphia on Monday night. We all know how the first meeting between those two teams went. I don't want to say this one was docile, but maybe not as many fireworks as anticipated. All things considered, though, a pretty effective road game from your team, methodical even in a 5-1 win.
Well, I think they're just very different games, right?
Yeah.
The first one was much closer, more competitive, went to overtime and a shootout, and at the end of the overtime, there wasn't really that many fireworks in the game until the end of overtime, and
right.
They were on the power play 4-on-3, and I think everyone has seen the footage and knows what happens. I think that it's much better when the two teams have a little bit of a hatred for one another, and I think that's best born when the two teams are at similar stages, and I think in both cases trying to ascend back to where both were when it was probably at its height in the early 2010s, and with playoff matchups and such. I definitely don't think that those games should be on Monday night. I think those are more later weekend primetime games. Those are just my own 2 cents of continuing to build those rivalries, and I do think it's a shame that with the way the schedule is, with everything built around rivalry and divisional rivalry and playoff, that we only play each other 4 times or sometimes just 3 times a year.
Don't even get me on that tangent.
So I just think for every reason that Flyers and Penguins should play each other more. I just think the more that you can do to build that up, the better, and the more deep rivalries that you have, the better.
The only thing that was missing, and we've seen it before, Sidney Crosby was the first star, and he does sometimes usually come out and take the twirl, but stayed back in the room last night. A 5-1 win for the Penguins over the Flyers, and the Tampa Bay Lightning await as the Penguins will hit the road for Tampa and Dallas over the weekend. We'll talk about that and much more when we come back.
So excited to be back for season 2. We made it.
We made it. We have some really exciting guests that are going to be joining us tonight.
I have a game tomorrow, so you guys got to do it quickly.
We're going to give you the inside details.
If I'm in a scrum and I get to punch Sean Avery in the face, I'll sign up for that.
Me too.
Any day.
Sometimes I have to do some tough love.
It's a very different way for me to watch.
1701, here he is.
Should we have unobstructed views everything?
Yes, we should.
Welcome back. We mentioned the Penguins kick off December with a big 5-1 win over the Philadelphia Flyers on Monday night. Tristan Jarry gets his back in net for the Penguins, and once again, since coming back from this injury, looks really solid. 28 saves on 29 shots. I think particularly, Kyle, you look at the very beginning of that game, and Philly had a couple great chances to take an early lead. He stopped them a few times. What do you make of, I guess, one, the body of work for him this year, but then also how he seemingly hasn't really lost a step since missing time with injury?
I think it's a number of things. I think, we've had, obviously, goaltending in my time here has been a big topic, and Tristan has been a big topic, and in every media session I have, it comes up. And my viewpoint is always, it's not always linear in terms of progression with goalies. Sometimes it goes up and down. There's lots of examples of the league where guys have their struggles and they steady themselves and push their way back. And I think for us, and when I specifically with Tristan, I don't think you can be anything but happy for him and proud of him, the way that, went down to Wilkes on conditioning and then was an outright assignment there last year. So went through waivers, went down there, found his game, came back, showed at the end of the season what he's capable of, and then has just carried that through this year. He's always had tremendous talent, and I think he's shown great character in the way that he's handled this last stretch, and now just have to keep building on it.
8 wins now to his name this year after the win over the Flyers on Monday. That was the big story within the game. Before the game, the big story was a couple of recalls that you made, and Rutger McGroarty making his season debut Monday night, and same too for Boko and Mama, both recalled. Let's start with Rutger. This is a guy that I think everyone was penciling in your opening night lineup before they found out there was an injury in training camp, and then we didn't see him for over a month before he appeared in Wilkes-Barre. What do you make of just his recovery, the performance with Wilkes, which was impressive, and then jumping back into the NHL last night?
Yeah, I think last year at the end of the season he started to show, when he got recalled with Ville after the trade deadline, really what he was going to become. I thought was having a major impact on the team, and then blocking a shot broke his foot.
Right.
So he wasn't able to get back in time for Wilkes-Barre's playoff run. I thought that really hurt them. And then right before camp comes down with an injury, sustained just naturally in training. And so it's been a bit of a bad luck stretch for Rutger on that front. And I think, we didn't want to just throw him into the NHL level despite the fact that he ended there. We felt he needed to go down, really kind of have a training camp type situation. So we were, said it would be minimum 3 weeks, much like training camp would be, from day one through to the naming of the roster, and that we would evaluate him at the end of those 3 weeks. We didn't tell him that. It was just go down, continue with your development. Internally, we thought, okay, let's see where he's at the end of the 3 weeks, and then it was just apparent right from game one that he was going to force the hand and earn his way back up very quickly and get back onto the roster. So that's a credit to him. It's a credit to the the performance and medical staff here and the development and coaching staff in Wilkes-Barre, all working in tandem, but most importantly to Rutger. And I thought he played very well last night, and our hope is that he just continues to grow and evolve and works his way into being a core fixture here.
I want to ask you about his line. They were calling it the kid line going into the game. Ville, Koivunen, Ben Kindle, Rutger McGroarty, all three guys have one thing in common, that they were acquired under your watch.
My view of it in talking to Dan about it was, Rutger has some experience with Ville, so it's probably just a natural fit to have him go in there, let us disperse the others. Kevin Hayes had started after coming back from injury, find his form and play well with Sidney and Rusty, and it let us keep the Novak, Gino, and Mantha line together. So I didn't really think of it in that way at all. I don't really think of things in that way. We're just trying to produce and develop and then convert as many guys as we can from prospects into players on the NHL team. If Dan decides it's best to play them together or all apart, that's his
Right.
domain, and he and I have deep discussion about it, but in the end he has to have control of that to be at his best.
Well, we mentioned Koivunen. There are a couple chances again in Philly. It's going to come. I think we're all convinced that first goal is going to happen, but he's north of 20 games now, still looking for it. I'm curious with a player like that, where you've seen it. We've all seen the skill is there, and even last year, it seemed like he was a point-per-game player when he got recalled from the American League at the end of the season. What do you talk to a guy like that? Do you kind of leave him alone? How do you handle a player in this situation?
I think you just keep pushing him to keep working, and it's not dissimilar from his start last year in Wilkes-Barre. He had a slower start, I think, production-wise, and then it started to be his team was taking over. The territorial game when he was on the ice. They were on offense. They were producing chances, and then he's competitive, as you see in game. He likes to mix it up, and then so he started to do a little bit of that more and more, which is the same thing as last year. And I just think in his case, you saw at the end of the year he came up and gets 7 points in 8 games, and I just think he's going to continue to produce offensive chances, and then eventually those chances are just going to start to go in, and then he'll be off to the races, and he'll end up the year with 30 or 40 points, and we'll look back on this as just was able to stay with it when the puck wasn't falling in, because he's doing a lot to impact the team very positively on offense. So I don't worry too much about him. He's so competitive, and as long as he just keeps pushing, doing the work with the development staff and in the gym. He's going to continue to get stronger, faster, and you're seeing it in games, and it's just not on the stat sheet yet, but it will be.
Yeah, it's cliche, but you get the feeling that when one goes in for him, a lot more are probably going to follow. Final thing before we take our break, I just wanted to check in on Harrison Brunick because he's down there in that conditioning stint. 3 games played, he's got a couple of assists. But overall, what are the reports from down there on how he's performed?
I think the last game, I thought he was, if not our best player, he was certainly our best defenseman in the game. And watching and going back through the tape, which is, he's played a ton. Kirk, Nick Luco, and Brad Malone have done a great job of really, it doesn't always go that way when players go down on those types of stints. And I have to give them credit. They've done, excellent work. Amanda Kessel was there with them all through last week as well. So just, he's played between 24, 26 minutes a night. He was on the power play, but, primarily want him on the penalty kill and focusing on his even strength play. And I think the minutes and the regularity of the games has been great. And so 2 more games this week, he and Jack St. Ivany, and then we'll have come to decision time for what's next for both.
Here, we don't just watch the Penguins. We live every tipped puck.
Unbelievable.
Every battle.
Give me more of this.
Every new prospect.
This is a glimpse of the future.
Everything you love about the Pens, we do too.
I'm down here between the benches.
You know what that means, Pens fans?
Cheers to that.
The fuck did they score?
We manifested it.
Stream the Penguins all season long on SNP 360.
Welcome back. Well, Kyle, when you look at last night's game against Philadelphia, that win, obviously a lot to like. But one guy who wasn't on the score sheet but seemed to be so noticeable every single shift was Blake Lizotte. And I thought it was fitting that he gets the player of the game helmet afterwards. Clearly his teammates recognized the same thing. The thing is, though, it's not just last night. It seems like every game he's made some noticeable plays. How has he fit into your scheme here, and how excited are you about the way he's played?
Well, I think even going back to last year, every time, even go back to my time with the Leafs, but every time watching LA, he always jumped out. Just his energy, his competitiveness. He's not the biggest guy, but very trusted defensively on the penalty kill. And I think this year especially shown more of the fire and the edge that he has. It kind of went over the edge early in the game last night, but he's a highly competitive, high character, extraordinarily reliable player. He doesn't need. I think everybody wants to produce to feel that to as a gauge of their worth. But I think with him, he has developed a deep understanding of the fact that he can affect the game with his defensive capability. I don't know if he started more than 5 shifts the whole year in the offensive zone, and I'm not even being facetious when I suggest that.
No, you're right.
So it's very difficult usage. He and Connor Dewar have combined to create a pair, regardless of who's been with them, Noel Achari, Joona Koivunen, Boko Imama, that Dan feels that he can fully trust to put in the defensive zone. I think the fear as a manager in those cases is there's sometimes coaches become really reliant on that, but they just stay in the defensive zone. They don't drive their way out. I think that group, when it's whoever Lizzo's been with, but especially with him and Connor Dewar, they understand the role and they understand that their contribution to the team is, taking on a very difficult assignment and putting the team in a better position. And I just think that really helps our team to perform and win. And they don't get the same credit as a lot of the younger guys that are ascending, or of course the players that have been here for a long time that have done so much for the franchise and the league. But those types of players, I think, are vital to the team taking the steps that we want to this year and continuing to push ourselves ahead. And it's a huge credit to Blake. And really to Connor Dewar, but Blake is the center on the line, and it's been great to see him just continue to take steps here.
Undrafted, 400-plus games now in the NHL for Blake Lizotte. He's been a great story here for the Penguins, as you mentioned, last year and this year as well, with the team right now in the mix in the playoff hunt in the Eastern Conference.
We should really focus just on St. Cloud University alumni for those specific roles. We
want to keep Matt Cullen happy, of course.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a long alumni list.
But it is a testament to the program there and the coaching staff. I mean, it was Bob Motzko before,
right.
And they just continue to have great coaching and development, and so it's a credit to them.
Yeah.
And they don't have this, they don't have the same, in Minnesota or nationally. It's not a huge city, but it's a great spot to go and watch hockey, and obviously they do a great job developing players.
Yeah. Well, Minnesota, state of hockey.
Yeah.
Further north, St. Cloud. That's a great area.
Yeah.
Been there once. Herb Brooks Rink, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Been there once before. Pretty cool little barn for that stadium. So he's been great. Penguins obviously are coming off a win and hopefully not too far away from getting some key bodies back. And I'm just curious for what you can share. 3 guys in particular of Justin Brazeau, Noel Acciari, and Rickard Rakell, who've been on the men here for a bit.
Well, the first thing is I think that we talked about this last time. I'm still impressed that when we don't play the way that we want to play, or we have a tough night, the injuries never are used as the excuse here. I think the team that we're going to play upcoming here is the same. They have guys out basically their whole defense core. You didn't hear about it, and then they started to win, and so I think that's the first thing that I'm most happy about. I'm not happy that the guys are injured, but I'm happy that the group, when it doesn't go well, we don't lean on that. You don't hear like, oh, we got guys out or anything like that. So I think that's a great sign organizationally. Noel Acciari and Braz will probably push here in the coming week to 10 days to return. Rax will probably trail them by 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then longer term, we have Phil Hollander and Caleb Jones, who their timelines were much more extended. They'll be into the new year, both of them.
One last thing I wanted to end this segment on before we take a break is you mentioned rosters. Will Horkoff, who's been having an unbelievable year, not your only prospect in college hockey having a great year, is another guy by the last name of Plant that's right there with him amongst scoring leaders in NCAA. But he's named to the USA World Junior Championship preliminary team. I know you have your Canada hat on, but to see one of your top prospects get this honor, we all know how big of a tournament that is. What do you think of that?
In Will's case, I think he's got 18 goals in 18 games, but I don't even think we're scratching the surface just on what he's going to evolve into as an overall player. It's a credit to Wes because he deeply believed in him. I remember, it was in March. He was at Michigan, and Wes was texting me, "You got to watch him more. I really think we got to have him higher up on our board." Just had a deep belief in Will, and then you meet Will and you understand, why that is. He just loves hockey, but also loves the process of getting better and improving. And I just think that we're hopeful that he'll go have a great camp and beyond the U.S. team, and so I think that'll be a great test for him, just with the pace and the competitiveness of the World Junior. So it's exciting for us, and we'll just keep watching.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to. I mean, the World Juniors are 3 weeks away pretty much from starting now up there in St. Paul, Minnesota. Another connection to the state of hockey. We'll be back to wind this thing down, talk a little bit about Sidney Crosby closing in on Mario Lemieux, and get this man's thoughts on it after this.
Inside Penguins Hockey is back.
Let's go eat sushi.
For an all-new season.
And now he's your best friend.
Yeah. Getting a line in the water is always a joy for me.
Inside Penguins Hockey. New episodes every month on SportsNet Pittsburgh. Presented by UPMC Health Plan.
Welcome back. My favorite stat from Monday night with Sidney Crosby gets 2 goals against the Flyers. So he now has 42 multi-point games against the Flyers, which is more than he's had games without a point against Philadelphia 21 times in his career. Just absurd stuff. But now, more importantly, they get the win. He's 7 points away from Mario Lemieux. I'm just curious how you're taking this all in as a hockey guy and seeing this kind of unfold before your eyes with your team.
Yeah, I think it's I don't think you ever feel, if you go back like early 90s, late 90s, or even early 2000s, that someone can come in the same organization and go over 1,500, 1,700
right.
points. Like, it just doesn't happen very much. I know McKinnon and McDavid have just gone over that threshold with Colorado and Edmonton, but it just doesn't happen so often anymore. And so to me, it's remarkable, like when he hit 600 goals and 1,600 points, and now 1,700 points, and now we're, closing in on Mario. It's a remarkable testament to consistency, and I don't know that there's been anybody more consistent in this generation and others than Sid, and it'll be a great moment. I think not only for Sid, but I think also for the city, the franchise, and really I think I can't speak for him, but for Mario as well, because there's a deep connection there, and if you're gonna pass that torch to anybody to carry, there's nobody better than Sidney Crosby. So I think it'll be we've got 2 road games, and then we're at home for a good stretch of time, and so I think it's always great when those moments happen at home, but I think given the player and his popularity and probably all but one place in the league, which you alluded to, seeing, it'll be very well celebrated and a great moment. So it's exciting, and we'll look forward to that for sure.
Yeah, well, he's picked up points in each of the last handful of games. One guy who's been right there with him and is on a heater is Brian Rust. He went a little quiet, 5 games without a point, but as Brian Rust usually does, once he gets one, they come in bunches, and he's got points in his last 4. Just curious for your thoughts on his body of work this year, because he's had some peaks and valleys, but right now seems to be flying.
Of all of our players, I probably spend the least amount of time worrying about Rusty. I mean,
they shaved his mustache though.
Rusty, Parker Witherspoon, they all kind of fit into Ryan Shea. Different players, different levels, but you don't really spend much time worrying about whether they're, especially in Rusty's case, he's done it over such a long period of time, whether he's going to find his form and when he's not producing, whether he's going to contribute to the team in different ways, penalty kill, defensive play. So he's, we're just fortunate to have him. And I just think Rusty if he hasn't produced in a game or two, you don't really lose much sleep about it.
Yeah, and he's producing right now, so we're all excited about that. Well, Kyle, appreciate your time as always. We got a little history on the horizon for the captain, but a couple big games await with the Lightning and Stars coming up. So thanks as always for your time.
No problem. Thanks, Josh.
All right, there he is, Penguins president of hockey operations, general manager, chief of security, anything you want to call him, Kyle Dubas. I am Josh Getzoff.